get into kind of Linda's presentation. Linda, I'm going to turn it over to you, but I would love if you would introduce yourself and answer the icebreaker as well too. And then, well, first go ahead and do that, and then I have a question for you after that.
Icebreaker is in the chat, New York City, and happy in the gym. And if the question is about feedback, I welcome all feedback. What did I leave out? Was it too much?
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, so we, as we listen to Linda's presentation, let's think about anything Linda may have left out. And if I think too much, is that what you said?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, did I go on too much?
Go on too much. Okay, cool. Awesome. I think with that, Linda, I will give it over to you and let you kind of start your presentation.
Great. All right. So I threw together this presentation because I really felt like the 4 tendencies from Gretchen Rubin helped me be more myself, because I realized there was other people who have a similar tendency as myself. So I'm curious how many of you have already been exposed to Gretchen Rubin's 4 tendencies. I know Malama has. Maybe raise your virtual hand. Okay, or yep, your real hand, I can see it. Great. And then if you did already take the test, if you want to put in the chat box, you'll be hearing and seeing the 4 groups, but put that in the chat already if you know which tendency you are. But you do not have to have done it. I think if you haven't taken the test, you will basically be able to figure out from the description which group you are in. So this is all about motivating yourself. This is a lean in network. So you kind of need to know, how am I going to get myself to do the things I want to do? And there are 2 ways that Gretchen Rubin says we motivate ourselves, from internal expectations and external. And most people are one or the other. Some of us are both, and some of us are neither. What are those 4? There are 4 different tendencies. So you are not just one or the other. You are definitely a mix, but which one is your kind of your primary thing? So first sample comes from the US, may not be appropriate for every place in the world, but so keep that in mind as I talk. So first group is upholders. So both internal and external expectations are important to this group. And they are about 20% of the US population. So a pretty big group. I consider that they are the high school principals of the world. They're very responsible. You'll hear more about that. And then there's another equally big group, about 20%, that are questioners, and they're listening to the inside. They're the kind of people who might not come to this session because they're like, I don't need to go in some box. That doesn't seem correct. And then the third group is obligers. Now, this is the most interesting group to me because they're the largest group. They are in the US about 40% of the population, and they really key into external expectations. And then the final group is a little bit different. About 17%, the smallest group, are rebels. They dislike internal and external, which is kind of baffling. That's why I'll spend a little bit of time on it. But so opening it up to all of you to think about and engage your minds. What is the best tendency to have or to cultivate? And of course, I'm pointing you toward today's theme of unapologetically yourself. And of course, it's kind of a rhetorical question, because your tendency is the best tendency, because there is no type that is more successful or happier, according to Gretchen Rubin, than any of the others. So you might feel kind of boxed in, but really you're just taking this as information to know how you might be different from others, and also motivate yourself. I love my friend Wendy, who you'll be hearing about today, and I'll encourage you to connect with. She has this image of you are the captain of your own ship. Learn how to navigate for yourself. And you'll see why she's had such a big influence on me. So let's go back to the upholders. They're self-starters. They love rules. They have a clear picture. They're disciplined. I suspect the women in my peer coaching circles are all upholders. I'm going to get back to you on later if you ask me about that. But my former co-organizer, Mari, was an upholder and also a high school principal. And they can motivate themselves through just schedule it. Make the rule for themselves and they will follow it. Questioners want to meet their own expectations. They resist outside expectations. And you gotta tell those people why you want them to jump. They are not the jump if I say so. So clarity in telling people your intention. So that's how you get clear with questioners. Third group, obligers. The one I said is kind of that interesting team player, response to external. So what I love about this group is all they need is someone to hold them accountable. So all the apps, even the peer coaching circles that hold people accountable, accountability partners, their sense of duty, they will do what they have said they're going to do. So the tricky one with this about being tied into external expectations is you can get kind of frustrated if you're putting everyone before yourself. So 65% of people who are obligers feel frustrated with their inability to prioritize themselves. So they eventually kind of blow up after they respond to everybody's expectations. And then the last group, the rebels, defy inner and outer expectations. They want to be free to choose. In the US, you think they'd have a lot of them because of the individuality piece of it, but you give them the facts, you present the task as a challenge. I challenge you to, you'll hear me talking about this, and then you let them decide. But if you start trying to pressure them with that external expectation, yeah, they're probably not going to do it just because you said, oh, you want me to do that? Ha ha ha, I'm never going to do that. So tricky. So this is actually my rebel story. So it was very helpful for me to find out that I have rebel tendencies because I grew up in a daycare home, so 10 kids. My mom is a questioner. So she chose to play with her brothers in the field on a farm versus with her sisters in the house doing inside work. And she chose my dad, who was an obliger, the biggest group. And he, hard to say nature nurture, but they definitely were a good fit in that way. And then I have a brother who is a questioner and a brother who is an upholder in my estimation. And this is just a little bit about me. And this graphic right here was created by Wendy Horning-Brower. So Wendy, also from the Midwest, moved to San Francisco, still lives there in Berkeley. I met her through Seth Godin's Alt MBA, very good program. She helps organizations get in tune with their kind of values. She has been my accountability partner for a long time. She's been a great friend to the Lean In program. She might look pretty straight-laced, but she's in a rock band. She does somatic coaching. When we had our Lean In conference there, she made graphic facilitation for the group, so drew stuff out, and she also did Spanish translation. So she is a powerhouse and a rebel. So turns out, since I started this idea, I wanted to meet other rebels. So as a community builder, I wanted to see how rebels were struggling, because it seemed like Gretchen Rubin didn't know a ton about. She didn't have like a lot of advice for rebels, except that rebels are happy in big organizations, which I found from this group was true. And that's partly because it's their identity. So ever since I was a teenager, I've been a vegetarian. Then I was a unicyclist. Then I was in the Girl Scouts troop. I mean, I just was identity seeking all the time. It's a miracle I didn't become a smoker. And I was always wondering why in this minority group of like 11% of women who don't change their name, 11% of women who don't eat meat or whatever. And I realized that it's about the rebel identity. So turns out my partner is also a rebel. So I started finding rebels everywhere, including a coworker of mine. She didn't make any sense to me. I didn't understand her at all. She didn't look to be a nonconformist like me. Instead, what the trick of her being a rebel is she was always complaining. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. Rebels do not do anything they don't want to do. So you can ask me for anything, because if I don't want to do it, I am not going to do it. So like your expectations are meaningless to me, because I will really talk myself into doing it or wanting to do it. So this is just something good to know about that group, especially because it's a little trickier. I would say also an insight from talking with my coworkers is questioners really don't like to be questioned themselves because they have really thought about what they believe. And when you question it, they're like, you know, I've really thought about this. Why are you questioning my judgment? So it can be a little friction there. So I would encourage you to think about your own family of origin as like a practice, as a group you probably know well, your partner, your friend, famous people, and then also if there's a gender element. So that is the end of my presentation. And Jay, if you don't mind, I would love for you to stop the recording there so it doesn't become super long.